I'm a failure. I failed out of high school. I'm a double failure. I failed out of university. There I was as an energetic young kid, a lot of energy, a lot of enthusiasm, very excited to go to school. And I find out that I have to sit for 50 minutes at a time, be still, can't speak, can't interact. I'm stuck. I'm learning things that I don't want to learn about. I have no control or input in what I'm learning, how I'm learning, the pace that I'm learning. I have to learn at the exact same pace as everybody else. The only thing that I learned about failure is that if I want to be like everybody else, I have to have the correct answer. If I don't have the correct answer, I'm not correct. There's no lessons in learning on how to fail and what those lessons learn. We always say you learn more by failing, but yet we don't teach that. Today, I'm going to talk about the history of apprenticeships and guilds and what we can learn from the past to change the educational systems and the commerce systems of today and the future to be more equitable and sustainable. So guilds go back to the 3rd century, 4th century, but I'm going to talk mainly about Middle Ages, around 1100, right before universities started, because the guild framework is where universities came from. The first universities of Paris, Oxford, Bologna, these were actually guilds where masters and students got together. This is where the term Master of Arts comes from. And also the corporational structure comes from the guilds. So what were the purposes of guilds? Guilds were a place where masters could share their lessons with apprentices. But there were fraternities, where there were brotherhoods, where they acted as a commerce system, they acted as a safety net for the community. So if you became infirmed, you needed burial rights, you needed to pay for your burial, that would be covered if you were part of the guild. The guild would be a closed system where you would learn in that system and then you'd pass your secrets on to other people and you'd learn from other guilds. The university systems split up. The ones in the north, they used an educational practice where the masters were in charge of the education. The students basically were at the whim of the masters. In the southern part of Europe, in Bologna, it was the students who led. And this method went on for about 300 years until it disappeared, until we have our current university system now, where it is the faculty that control the educational process, not the students who are going through the process. And who is the customers of our educational system of today? So the way that apprenticeships would work is you would go in and you would work for a master for 7 years. He would provide your food and board. You'd work with him and you learn the craft. He would teach you occasionally, but you would actually learn from those apprentices that were older than you. So this was peer-based learning. You'd actually do what we call today project-based learning. You would create a project and you'd work on that project. You were encouraged to fail. You were encouraged to experiment, to come up with new techniques as you became more experienced. As you went through the process, you'd build these relationships. You'd build a network of professionals who cared about your success because you would contribute back to the guild. Upon graduating, you were expected to create a masterpiece. That masterpiece would be given back to the community. It would serve the community in some fashion. You'd actually pay into the guild a sum of money to the guild. Then afterwards, you would be a journeyman. And as a journeyman, you would travel around Europe and you'd actually learn from other masters. And a journey comes from what you could travel in one day. And you do that for 3 years, and those were called your tramping years. It's called the waltz. The Australian song Waltzing Matilda comes from that. We have those today. They're called postdoctoral fellows. They're tramps. They just go tramping around. This is the extension of that. So whenever you see a postdoctoral fellow, you can call him a tramp. You were expected to sacrifice and give back to the community. it was a set of values that binded the guild. These values were really important, so much so that you swore an oath to that guild over any other structure. This bothered some of the clergy who were ruling at the time, because your oath to the guild was stronger than that of the church. So you were encouraged to fail. I want to talk a little bit about apprenticeships programs and how they've evolved. We've used them in the military. So I spent 13 years in the military. Before that, I failed in high school. I failed in college. Then I joined the military. So the military training system, think about it. It's as Darwinian as you can get. If you don't survive on the battlefield, you die. Only the best training techniques are going to propagate generation after generation. Right? So if we can look at the military structure as far as how they do it. In the Air Force, I was first in the Air Force, then I was in the Army, I went to enlisted, and then I went to officer candidate school. As an enlisted soldier, you go through boot camp, your indoctrination, similar to apprenticeships, where you prove your worth, that you are actually committed to the cause, whatever it is. Then you actually start to learn your craft. You go to a tech school, and you learn your craft very intensely, alongside senior cadets, military soldiers who are teaching you. And you learn, and you actually take what you learned that day and you implement it. Then you graduate your tech school and you go out in the field and you practice. You're tramping around, going to different military bases. Then you come back for your your secondary school. You come back for a refresher course, and you take that. And then you come back for another course that's more intensive. Then eventually you get your advanced course, and you become Chief Master Sergeant. And then you become a master. This is the way that it's done in the military, and you give back to the community. In this learning system, which was far more regimented, and I did not like regimentation, let me tell you. I graduated first in my class from most of the military schools I went to. I was #1 in my class out of officer candidate school. I went back to university, and I was nominated outstanding graduate in my college, where I failed out of, and I had to pull my grades back up. So for people trying to learn a craft, this, I think, is the best way. Not any craft, excuse me, I think for all crafts. Every career can be made into an apprenticeship. So let's look at what the current state of education is. The current state of education is a debt-based educational model. The average graduate graduates with $27,000 of student loan debt. That is unforgivable. If you're not from the United States, student loan debt, even if you declare bankruptcy, follows you to your grave. Back in guilds, they had a name for this. It was actually eventually outlawed. It was called indentured servitude. The banks just renamed it, packaged it back up, said, we're just going to call it government-backed guaranteed student loans. Right? It's great marketing. I love it. I fell for it. I had debt. You know? Let me ask you a question. How many people here went to university? Raise your hand really quickly. I'm going to ask a bunch of, about 100% of the audience. Okay. Now, how many of you think that the university system did a great job, good job, of providing you a skill set that on day one you were employable and hireable and you were of value to the company that hired you? Raise your hand if you think that. 3 people. All right, another question. How many of you, when you get a call from your university now, do they go, hey, how's your career going? Can we introduce you to some people? Can we make sure that your job is going well? Can we provide you additional training? When they call you now, do they ever do that? Raise your hand. Anybody? Anybody? No, they don't. When they call you now, they're calling you for what? Money. They're calling you for a contribution where you paid them and you went into debt to go to their university. You think the beggar on the street has a good gig? No, the guys on Wall Street who are backing these mortgage-backed securities with student loans, they've got it down. The university's got it down. They are promising you what when you graduate? Status? Is that going to feed you? No. Are they guaranteeing you a job? Are they actually going to really help you find a job? You got the career center. Yeah, you kind of go there every now and then, right? No, they're not going to continue to call you up. So what we can look at doing is we need to change the educational system. This is not going to scale. There's a once-in-a-planet-time opportunity and occurrence that are both merging and other forces that are coming in the next 3 to 8 years that will never happen again in this planet's time. Never, ever, ever will it happen again. The world's population is young, and they're about to come of age of where they are going to either want a job or they're going to fight for resources. In Uganda, the average population, 60% of the population is under the age of 24, 50% under the age of 18. This is duplicated all around the world. Egypt, Kenya, all around. If we do not provide them a guaranteed path to success that is debt-free, we are not going to be able to sustain where we're going. There is going to be an economic, educational collapse in the way that the education is being provided for currently. At the same time, in the next 3 to 8 years, there's going to be this tremendous opportunity to create tremendous wealth or distributed wealth and great positive social change. These once-in-a-planet-time opportunities have happened before. Getty recognized it, the worldwide adoption of petrochemicals. He got really rich. Edison, the light bulb, he got really rich. Gates, the computer, he got wealthy. But those were all very, very small compared to what's going to happen next. The next one is going to make those booms look like psst. The next occurrence is going to be the worldwide adoption of complex computing down to the villager level, backed by low-cost mobile devices that are accessed to the cloud with internet connectivity everywhere. Everybody is going to have that cell phone. There are educational opportunities there. There's other opportunities there. Those who understand these forces that are at play can either make great wealth or they can cause great positive change. So what we need at this time is we need a different educational system. Universities, I think, do have their place. But if they don't change, they're going to collapse. 60% of the funding for the education, when you pay your tuition, that comes from your tuition. The rest comes from, 40% comes from alumni who contribute back. The youth who are graduating university today are debt bound. They're not going to be contributing in the future. We're now entering into a time when it is a negative social return on a negative investment return for going to university. You're going to actually pay more in university than you'll recoup in your entire life. So if we don't change the educational system, we need an educational system that is going to exponentially scale. This is where I see technology being able to be used, but we need to have that technology and educational system wrapped up in a set of values, in a guild that encourages the planet to be more sustainable, more connected. So what do I propose? I propose that we could have a global guild. Think about it, a global guild. What would that look like? Well, principles of war are to destroy the enemy's ability to maneuver, operate, and communicate. What if we were to flip those around? What if we were to build up the community's ability to operate, maneuver, and communicate, where we were more connected? What if we changed the educational system where community service was part of it, centered around a set of values that enhanced, that addressed all the reasons why we go to conflict, micro-conflict and macro-conflict. We could have an educational system where you went through it and you tied back a percentage of your income. And you could do that for life. But that organization would then eventually become a safety net for you and your local community, because the dividends could be reinvested back into the community in what could be called replenitive capitalism, as opposed to practicing extractive capitalism. If all the equity were put back into the system and only salaries were paid for those who are contributors, where it was student-led, where the students actually led their educational process, you would teach me, and I'd take that lesson and I'd pass it on to someone else. That scales exponentially. 1, 2, 4, 8. I failed math, so I don't remember the next one. So, when we look at this, we're able to look at different things. We can provide career transitions throughout life. The average person is going to have 7 career transitions in their lifetime. What if career transitions were free, as long as you were contributing back to the community in some fashion? This can scale globally down to the villager level within 10 years. This type of thinking. What I would encourage is that the students who come through our program, they'd have to produce a masterpiece. That masterpiece would be something that would help the community. Imagine using technology where they would identify a local or global problem they wanted to solve using technology and open source code, develop that solution, and then contribute the code back to the community. So these could be addressing issues like where are bribes occurring, where the next outbreaks of disease are happening. They could actually go do their journeyman years where they'd actually go and work with NGOs and pass their lessons on within the community. This community would then grow. Because each one of you has some type of expert skill, ask yourself, would you contribute and teach somebody who is giving back to the community that expert skill? You probably would. Raise your hand if you would. Pretty much 70%, 80% of the people, 90%. So imagine a global guild where everybody's giving back to the community and we take the banks completely out of the educational system. We could track this with the internet. How much is somebody contributing? Status then would be based off of who's giving back to the community. If you and I both went through the program together and I wanted to do business with you, you go to the website, you check and see if I'm contributing, but I'm not. Would you want to do business with me? Probably not. Probably go to the person over here and do business with them because they're contributing back to the community. It'd be voluntary. So in the next few years, there's a very unique opportunity with mobile devices going down to the villager level. Education can go down there. But if we don't do the education, the way that we're playing the game right now is we are playing the game of capitalism as an infinite game on a finite planet. We're all rushing to the top of the planet, or to the top of the mountain. We're all rushing there. But the only way we were able to do that before is we were able to expand development. Well, now the whole planet is filled. As everybody starts rushing to the top of the mountain, the only choice left to do is push people off the cliff if you want to get up. But if we're able to create a new form of capitalism, community-based capitalism, where we contributed back, and sustainability, diversity, equitability, these were the values that we embraced as an organization. Friction reduction, social justice. And a person went and actually looked at different communities and he tramped about to get to learn what were the problems in different communities. So you'd have these bridges made, social economic bridges. You had wealthy studying alongside the low income, sponsoring the low income, and then actually incubating businesses together. That's what I would do with a global guild. And we're actually starting it right now. We've been in existence for a year, just less than a year, Ruby, Newbie, and Agile activism. So I encourage you to check us out. If not, think about these opportunities and think about how you can use them to better affect your communities. Thank you.